and welcome to Plowing the Past. My name is Kendall Motes, and in these interviews, guests who have shaped New Holland, Pennsylvania's agriculture history will be interviewed and asked to share their experience. Again, my name is Kendall Motes, and I am a sophomore student at Ithaca College. I was a graduate of Garden Spot and part of the Grassland FFA. I served as a sentinel and the president for 2 years, and then I was also the first New Holland Fair Queen in 2022. Today I am here with Lowell Graybill. He was a graduate in 1982, and he's just going to give us a little bit of insight on his agriculture history in high school, and then now, and what he's up to, and then also just tell us about his FFA experience. So, Lowell, can you just give us a little bit of background on like your family and where you grew up and what got you into agriculture?
Sure. Yeah, I grew up actually on the Lancaster County, Berks County line, so kind of up in the northeast part of the county. An older sister and younger brother, and we lived in a rural community there, so we were all familiar with local farms, but I did not grow up on a farm. Enjoyed working alongside of some of the local farmers at times, helping out with some chores, that kind of thing here and there. But my dad was a welder and mechanic most of his life, and did a lot of home repair, that kind of thing. Picked up a lot of things there, but money was short and we made do with what we had, and so it was, I really credit those years as giving me the opportunity to learn a lot of skills, kind of self-motivated, make it happen, do it, get it done, find the way, find the means to do it. And believe it or not, that was before the internet, so we didn't have punch for a YouTube video, but then I started working fairly early on as well. So by the time I got to school, I already had, I was entrenched at least to some extent in some part-time local jobs and that kind of thing, learned some of the responsibility and valued that, the responsibility of staying on schedule and getting a job done. Mm-hmm. But then on into my school years, I had the opportunity to, and it was to my choice, my parents left it to my choice, but the program that Dr. Herr had been part of initiating through the alternative school program at Hinkletown Alternative for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, particularly aimed at the plainer community who didn't have children that went beyond 6th grade because they didn't have their own school, mm-hmm. that went beyond that. And so coming into the Brecknott Elementary School program where we were and part of the Eastern Lancaster County School District, this gave an alternative of introducing those students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to further education than they would have gotten had they stayed strictly with the elementary school, public elementary school program. I chose to go to that school, and I really valued that. It was really focused on the basics of academics, but then also branched into the agriculture and home building and carpentry and power mechanics and those kinds of things. And that was just continuing to further my exposure to what I'd been learning at home with my dad, mm-hmm. and in some of the jobs that I had worked also. And so it was just another step expanding, mm-hmm. Where I started at home. And in that school then that's where I got more in-depth exposure to the agriculture program, that field. And it expanded the mechanical side and that sort of thing, which I enjoyed, and I've been employed in some of those roles as well. But so I saw a lot of value in that 3-year program before then coming to Garden Spot for my freshman year.
And then your freshman year, and I mean the rest of high school, did you feel better prepared since you did that program? Like, did you feel like you had a lot of like agricultural knowledge, or? Yeah,
that was where the advantage was, not so much on the academic side, because I did feel a little bit of a, I hadn't been exposed to any of the pre-algebra or any of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a hard step to take on the academic side. But from the agricultural side, then, it definitely exposed me to more of the agricultural perspective that has become such a part of my life since.
Yeah. So in high school, what were some of like the career development events or like mm-hmm. the public speaking events that you participated in?
Yeah, I think, I really value the experience in the FFA program, but through the agricultural classes and the advisors there that really focused on the parliamentary procedure components, that focused on public speaking, presentation, that kind of thing. Never realizing, of course, at that stage how much that would be an advantage to me later on. But I really, looking back, really do value it. And I did enjoy it at the time, too. But then some of the other career development aspects, you know, as the years in the agricultural program progressed, I was exposed to some different industry tours and business tours. In fact, one of my objectives in high school, especially as I approached my senior year, I was on an academic track. I knew I wanted to go to college, and as part of that, I needed to maintain a certain academic level of courses and that kind of thing.
Yes.
But I wanted the agriculture program. That was just something I wanted to fit in. But then, heading towards my senior year, I was looking forward to. I kind of had my sights set on being hired by New Holland.
Okay.
The big equipment company, and at that time, Sperry New Holland. Just as a side note, unfortunately, by the time I graduated college in '86, the New Holland had just laid off that same spring. It just laid off 300 people because of where the ag economy was at. So that didn't pan out. However, that was an objective, and one of the most memorable plant tours, business exposures I had was an actual tour we took during one of our ag program career development segments of the New Holland plant. And I'll never forget the tour. It was definitely instrumental in just piquing my interest in farm equipment, agricultural equipment.
After some technical difficulties, we are back, and we are going to continue our conversation for Plowing the Past so we can round out our interview. Lowell, let's talk a little bit about college and that transition from high school to college. Was that just natural that you were going to go? I mean, you said that you really wanted to go on that track.
Yeah, I did, and one of the things that kind of led me in that direction was I knew when I transitioned from the alternative school to Garden Spot High School, I knew at that point that I wanted to go on to college. I didn't know necessarily exactly what I wanted to study, but I was thinking along the agricultural lines. And then early on, dealing with Bob Lawfer and talking about where I was, how I was going to integrate and whether I was going to integrate agriculture into my study in high school, I had to come to grips with how much was I going to focus on academics versus how much I was going to spend in the agricultural curriculum. And I looked at the ag curriculum, particularly because of the environmental ag program, as giving me that opportunity because it only met half the number of periods a week as compared to production agriculture, and it was a good fit. And as a result, I gained a lot out of that goes on into other things I've been involved in life since school. But I continued to develop both through my academic program as well as be involved in the ag program. And it allowed me to get the electives in, get the coursework in. But I knew I wanted to go on to school. I applied at 3 schools, was accepted at 3 schools, decided to go to Penn State because of their ag program, actually the depth of their ag engineering program. And I went there to study ag mechanization. And commuted to Branch campus and Berks campus for 2 years, and then went to University Park from there. And once I was there, I was involved in some student activities at the Branch campus and started a new club there along with another fellow, and just really engage as much as I could for it being a Branch campus, non-resident Branch campus.
I was going to say, did you commute? But there wasn't even an option to live there.
Yeah, that's all changed since, but there wasn't at the time. Then when I went to University Park, then I got immersed fairly quickly in other activities. I was on campus housing, and I got involved in the Association of Student Activities organization. In fact, served on their budget committee, and then I also was involved in collegiate FFA. I was involved in the Ag Mech student club, and then in a Bible fellowship group as well. So I had a number of different social and career related or study related engagements there. And it continued to serve to add to what I had picked up while in high school. So the parliamentary procedure, the public speaking, some of which came through from both the academic side and some of the speech and English classes, as well as in the agriculture and FFA programs, the competitions and the class studies. And I just saw that continue to expand. So when I was involved in college, it was kind of a natural to fit into some of those organizations and take on some roles, which just, again, I saw as further expanding the breadth of what I was learning, and I just valued my time at Penn State.
Yeah.
I did graduate with the BS in the Ag Mechanization program. That program was changed very shortly thereafter to Ag Systems Management Technology, and then further shortened to Ag Systems Management, and in more recent years it's been discontinued. But it was administered through the Ag Engineering program. And I had decided at that time, when I decided on that major, was I just so thoroughly enjoyed the equipment and mechanical side of things. And I was debating to go the engineering track or the ag mechanization track. I decided to stay with the ag mechanization track because it left me be more engaged in the actual product development, field testing, redesign component rather than specific component design.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, at that time, I had been still kind of hoping I could become employed by New Holland, and I was really hoping to veer towards field testing and product development. That didn't pan out, but when I graduated college, then I did have a number of different opportunities, but that's when I got involved with Rainbow Fertilizer and cut my teeth in the world of large fertilizer pesticide application equipment, and then I was engaged with that for most of my career up until more recently.
Okay. And then now, are you involved in any like organizations that are still like FFA agriculture related?
Yeah, not as much directly agriculture related. Now, the businesses that I've worked for, we would get to trade shows, ag related trade, equipment related trade shows, and then there were some different opportunities to sit on some boards and sit on some working groups and that sort of thing. At the moment, I'm not necessarily directly involved in any specific ag-related organization.
Okay. Now, as we wrap up the interview, is there anything that you'd like to touch on about like high school or college that you'd like to touch on, or even your career now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that especially looking back on it, that I really value, I see as a value, is the progression that took place from the alternative school years into my years at Garden Spot, through my years at Penn State, and then through the various employment opportunities I've had over the years, and to see the value of the progression, because things along the way, whether it was an elective I took in high school when I was at Garden Spot, or the way I loaded up my credits in college and tried to get the most out of that opportunity while I was spending the money anyway, money and effort and time. I just see that all coming together as a progression, as I said. And so even to the point where when I was in the environmental FFA, I went to the first year that Lancaster County held a youth conservation school. Okay. And that school continues to this day, a one-week resident school. While I was a student the first year, my counselor at the time actually eventually became my wife. I went back on staff for years after that. And just that experience of being on staff and eventually co-director on staff at that school was yet another progression in the way of some management skills, leadership skills, organizational skills. Mm-hmm. And so when I later on then, we were married some years later, but later on then, and I should add, my wife had worked with the Extension Service too, through the NS and RCS. And so we've had a connection to the ag community. We've got good friends that are in the farming business, but I've related to all the years of my career to people in the agricultural field, whether the equipment they use or pesticide recertification courses I would teach and that kind of thing. And so I've been involved with the Federation of Sportsmen's Clubs, which isn't an ag-related organization, but it's a statewide organization that also has its division and county representative groups. And I've been on the board for multiple years at the state level. I've been the president there for 3 different terms, a total of 6 years. Those and committees, all those activities I see as a result of some of the progression that took place from early on, especially the influence in my time.
Well, those leadership opportunities that you get in high school and just like building you up by doing competitive events and speaking events, you see that then 15, 20, 25, 50 years later. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, even for example, with the Federation of Sportsmen's Clubs, I've helped. I actually chaired a steering committee to go through a whole organizational evaluation and restructuring, and then major bylaws and constitution rewrites. I just did that with my local sportsman's club. They called on me because of my background again. And I did that with my own home community church as well. We established a whole structured membership process and established bylaws and wrote a clear constitution. And I steered that committee through that process. And that didn't happen by accident. It happened because of the progression that happened from the early years of my exposure to those things here in the ag program at Garden Spot. And I must say, you know, one of the key factors for me, clearly, and I value to this day, were the individuals who were involved in that. Because there's academics, there's programs, there's a lot of stuff to learn, there's libraries full of information now, the internet full of information, but those instructors that I had along the way, individuals, Bob Laufer and Cliff Day and Phil Odeline and Bob Hearn, numbers of other people along the way, Jerry Odeline over at the alternative school. You know, I really do value the input of those instructors over that time.
And they can change the game for like the experience you have in the classroom.
Without any doubt at all. And I really believe that we had one of the strongest, if not the strongest, ag program
100%
in the county, maybe even the state. And you know, it's not just based on ribbons awarded at competitions, but we did well at competitions too. But the attentiveness of the teachers, not only in the classroom, but after class in organized activities, you know, being there to provide a ride home in the late hours of the day when no late bus is running anymore, to the encouragement to pursue something when I might have been doubting something. You know, that input that those individuals had, plus the vision they had for like the environmental ag program. That was a 3-year program. I wanted to take an ag program in my 4th year, my senior year, but I had already taken the 3 years of environmental ag. They saw fit to allow me to audit half the class periods in the VOAG program my senior year, and then it allowed me to do a work experience program for a few months working for Stalford Diesel when they were still here in town. Another mechanical equipment type exposure. So there's just so many pieces that fit together, but a lot of it was guided by and influenced by those various individuals I named.
Because where could you ever have those experiences in an algebra class, an English class? Like, ag is where it is at if you want that experience. And I'm not going into an ag career or field, but the experiences that I had in high school and the like competitive events and everything you're saying is so true. Because the advisors, they see like your future for you already, and they know how to guide you in the perfect direction. So
I certainly got better counsel and more in-depth counsel from those different individuals than I did from my high school guidance counselor. And I'm not trying to cast any shadows there. They do their job too, but as in identifying a career path or identifying a path in life, I think the ag program and the instructors involved and the visionaries there had far more impact.
Yeah, especially when you spend so much time with them. I remember you saying like driving you home late nights. I remember we had a meeting at 5 a.m. and my teacher was like, I'll just come pick you up on the way. Because I mean, like, and again, what other teacher would do that for you if you needed a ride? Some teachers are like, have fun, like get home one way or another. But I think that's a great way to end off. That Grassland truly does have great teachers. Garden Spot produces great kids for sure. And FFA is definitely going to stick with you forever.
Sure.
So thank you for watching, and thank you guys for sticking along with us through all of our technical difficulties. Stay along for more Plowing the Past videos.